All right, today we're going to decode the fundamental alphabet of life itself. We're talking about amino acids, these tiny yet absolutely essential building blocks that are responsible for some of the most complex and amazing machinery you could possibly imagine.
Just think about this for a second. Inside every single one of your cells, right now, there are millions of these intricate little machines called proteins. They're the microscopic workhorses doing pretty much every job you can think of, from digesting your food and fighting off viruses to carrying oxygen through your blood. Put simply, they are absolutely crucial for life.
So, you'd think that this incredible three-dimensional complexity must come from something just as complex, right? I mean, what are these amazing molecular machines actually built from?
Well, this is where it gets really fascinating. All of this diversity, all of this incredible function, it all comes from a surprisingly simple set of just 20 core building blocks. It's kind of like an alphabet. With just 26 letters, we can write every book imaginable. Life does something very similar, just with its own chemical alphabet.
So, before we can really understand the words and sentences that these letters can form, we've got to understand the letters themselves. So let's take a look at the fundamental blueprint that pretty much all amino acids share. At its heart, every amino acid has this sort of two-sided personality. On one end, you've got what's called an amino group, which is basic, and on the other end, you have a carboxyl group, which is acidic. This dual nature is totally key to how they link together to build things.
And here it is. This is the standard layout for nearly all of the amino acids used to build proteins. Right at the very center, you have a carbon atom known as the alpha carbon. You can think of it as the central hub that everything else connects to.
Now here's the key. 3 of the 4 things attached to that central carbon are always the same. You've got the amino group, the carboxyl group, and a hydrogen atom. It's the 4th piece, what scientists call the R group or side chain, that's different for each one. This unique side chain is what gives each of the 20 amino acids its specific identity and its own chemical personality.
All right, now it's time to meet the 20 different letters in our biological alphabet. And we can actually group them into a few main families, all based on the chemical properties of those unique side chains we just talked about.
We can basically sort them into 3 main groups. First, you've got the hydrophobic ones, the water furers. Their side chains are like oil, so they try to hide away from water deep inside the protein. Next up are the hydrophilic or water-loving ones. Their side chains are perfectly happy to interact with water, so you usually find them on the protein's surface. And finally, you have the charged amino acids. They can be either positive or negative, and they act like tiny little magnets that can attract or repel each other.
And you can see right here how those different personalities really translate into structure. On the left, those water-fearing nonpolar groups are stacking up, hiding from the water around them. On the right, the polar groups are forming these connections called hydrogen bonds, which are so important for holding a protein's shape together. It's all these different interactions that guide a protein to fold into its correct functional form. Okay, so this is all really cool biochemistry, but how does it connect to our everyday lives? Well, it turns out the answer is right there on your dinner plate. Let's talk about why some amino acids are called essential.
For a healthy adult, the magic number is 8. Yep, there are 8 specific amino acids that our bodies simply cannot make from scratch. We just don't have the cellular machinery to produce them.
And this gives us a really critical distinction. The essential amino acids are the ones we absolutely must get from our diet. Think meat, eggs, beans, nuts. Without them, our bodies just can't build the vital proteins they need to function. The non-essential ones are just as important, for sure, but our cells are clever enough to make them as needed from other raw materials that are lying around. So how in the world are you supposed to remember which ones are essential? Well, a common mnemonic that people use is PVT-ITEM-HAL. It stands for phenylalanine, valine, threonine, tryptophan, isoleucine, methionine, histidine, arginine, leucine, and lysine. Now, you might have noticed that's 10, not 8. And you're right. That's because 2 of them, arginine and histidine, are what we call conditionally essential, which just means our bodies can sometimes make them, but not always enough, especially when you're a growing kid. So we have our 20 individual letters. How does life actually string them together to write the words and sentences that make up a protein? The answer lies in a really special kind of link. It's a beautifully simple but really powerful reaction. The acidic end of one amino acid links up with the basic end of another one, and as they join, a molecule of water gets kicked out, and bam, a strong, stable link called the peptide bond is formed. This process just repeats over and over and over again, creating a long chain of amino acids, which we call a polypeptide.
And this brings us right back around to where we started. From just these 20 simple building blocks, linked together in a very specific order, life creates an almost infinite variety of complex machines. The exact sequence of these amino acids, which is dictated by our DNA, determines everything: how the protein folds, what its final 3D shape will be, and ultimately what job it's going to do in the cell. When it comes right down to it, it is all about the sequence. It's the blueprint, the code, the very language of function. And this leads us to one final, really critical question. If this sequence is so important, what happens when there's a typo? What are the consequences when just one tiny building block is out of place?